Welcome back to the channel. We're working on our 2019 GMC Sierra Denali again. The windshield's installed and our PDR guy was here. So we got the rest of our parts. Let's put this thing all back together, get it finished up and out on the road. Let's get started. We're going to start with the hood. We'll put our scoop back in. Just line up the studs and then the little plastic clips clip in. Open it up and put our nuts on the studs. Try not to drop them in the hood. Success. So now we can put up our ductwork. Clips in the front. We'll put one bolt in the center to hold it up. Then we'll work our way around, get the rest of them. Now we can put our hood insulation up. Do it the same way. Put the one clip in the center. That's the different one that had the push pin. And we'll put the rest of the Christmas trees all the way around. The ones we haven't lost yet. So our seatbelts are back. They're all rebuilt from my airbags. And the service is so great from these guys that I wasn't even in the state when all this took place. I sent it to them, they sent me an email letting me know they got them. Then while I was out picking up a build, they let me know that they were ready. I paid for them, and they sent me an email saying they were shipping them out. By the time I got home, these things were waiting for me. Couldn't be simpler. Now, if you don't want to pay dealer prices for new seatbelts, and you just want to have your old ones rebuilt, check them out. Links in the description. Let's get them installed. Before we can put the seatbelts in, we need to change the adjusters. The little tabs inside are plastic and they break when the seatbelts deploy. So we gotta buy new ones. There's a little Christmas tree on the back, so you just push it in and you can bolt it in. Click. Make sure this new one works. Then we'll go over to the driver's side. Same way. The little Christmas tree in and then bolt it in. Now we can bolt the retractors in on the bottom. There's one bolt on the bottom and one on the top. We'll route our seat belt up the pillar. There's one clip in the center. Then we can bolt the top of the seat belt into our adjuster. And we'll go over to the passenger side. It appears I have ADD today. I can't just finish one side, so we're going to jump back and forth. Plug in our pre-tensioner. And we'll check and make sure our system is working now that we have all of our parts back in. Our airbag light went out. We're all good. We'll keep going. We'll have to clear the codes later because they will be stored in there. And if the light ever comes back on, I want to know which ones were new and which ones were history codes. So we can put the top of the B-pillar trim on. We'll line up our adjuster, make sure it works. We'll use our trim installation tool. Put our bolts in our grab handle and head over to the other side, because why would I want to finish one side at a time? I could edit the video so it looks like I stay focused, but then you'd be denied my completely arbitrary method of vehicle assembly. Flip it in, make sure our adjuster's working, and run our bolts in our grab handle. Hey, back to the other side. Put the lower piece in. Just clips in. Pull the gasket out that gets tucked behind it. And we'll clip our sill plate in. Now we can connect the seat belt to the seat. So we'll snap the bezel in. Bolt the bottom of it down. We got one side done. Now we'll head over to the driver's side. We'll do the same thing. Put that lower trim panel on there and snap it in. Pull the gasket out of there. Drop our seatbelt in. This side, because it was tensioned so tightly, I took that little cover off. So now we're going to put the cover back on this side. Just gives you more access when the seat won't go all the way up. We put our seat back. And we put our trim panel back on the side of the dash since we found a way to not have to take that stupid wiring harness out for the headliner. We'll put our A-pillar trim up there. Slides into the top of the dash. And there's 2 bolts in the grab handle. Do the same thing on the passenger side. This one required an installation tool. Now we can put our rear view mirror on. Plug it in. Slide it down on the little track. And tighten up the set screw. And put the little cover around our camera and all the wiring. Snap it up there. And put the little door on. Now we're going to put all the little caps on our grab handles. Chose to do this now because I had a big pile of them. They're all different, and I didn't feel like sorting through the mess. So we'll snap those in. We'll put our headrest in. It just pushes down, clips in, and stays in all by itself. Or at least it's supposed to. If it doesn't, you got a problem. Put our clips on our grab handles in the front. Now we're back up to our cowl. Oh, look at that. It must be the end of the build, or at least close. Somebody showed up for a paycheck. Wonder if he enjoyed his time in Georgia. So we'll clip our cowl screen in. It slides up underneath the windshield. So we got to get the back of it to slide in those tabs. Then we can put the push pins across the front. Once that's all in, we'll put our wipers on. We'll line them up. Hopefully the wiper motor was in park. I didn't check. It's going to be exciting if it's not. We'll bolt them down. We'll plug in our washer line. Clip it into its retainers on the fender. Now we'll try out our washers and wipers. And they're staying on the windshield. That's a good sign. We're going to need these for the safety test anyway. So since we got everything right, we'll clip our little caps on the wipers. And we'll clip the ends on the cowl screen. They snap into the fender, and there's a couple clips that go into the cowl screen itself. Do the one on the passenger side. Then we can install the antenna. Click. I can put the roof molding on that we had off so we could paint it. Slide the back in. It's got like a teardrop shape. It goes over the little pin. So we'll put the pin inside the clip and then push it down. And the top just snaps into all the clips. Just work your way to the front and back. Make sure we got everything. That's done. Now we can start getting our tailgate ready. Our factory molding alignment system. I'll take this off. We need it for the other side. I did make the template by measuring off my other truck, thereby making it the most expensive Sierra Denali template ever. And we'll put our GMC emblem in the center. It's just marked for height and centered. So this is our original tailgate handle. This is a used tailgate handle that I had that rolled over 2015. They're a little bit different, but our black plastic piece here is the same. So I think I have enough to make this work. They must have punched the lock out of here, so this is all broken out. And this little tab right here is broken. That's why it won't open whenever you use the power door lock, because this spring doesn't work like it's supposed to. I think we have enough to transfer everything over and make it work. Also, we're missing our little door for the front of the lock, which we can take off our other one. So it looks like we need to change this. Let's try that. Spring in the bottom. So this truck, before it hit the auction and they took everything off of it, must have had a bed cover on it, and it was one of the bed covers that opens from the inside. It looks like somebody needed to get in, so they punched the lock out of it. I don't know if they actually got in. Well, I assume they did. The bed cover was gone. But even if you punched a lock out of these things, the way it broke, you really couldn't get in without some kind of pick and tripping a lever that wasn't easy to see. That little lever, actually. The little black lever, which was not easily accessible from that little hole where the lock should be. So we'll put our little spring back underneath there. Put our set screw in it. Tighten it down. Make sure everything is working so far before we go any further. It looks like it is. The reason the locks are different is the one's out of a 15, the other one's out of a 19. The 15 didn't have the power door lock option. That's why I have to switch it over. We'll pop the front of the lock off. Locks look the same. So now we gotta take our little door off. It's pressed in there, some little barbs on the side of it. Pop it out of there with a pick. There's a couple springs behind it, so you gotta be careful you don't drop them, as we don't have extras. Alright, pull our springs out. Drop them in the other one. Put our little door back on there. Just pushes in. Those barbs will hold it in. Make sure it works. Hold the center in. We pulled the key out so we don't rip it back out of there. And now we can snap our cover back on the front. Make sure our lock works. And we can turn our retainer around and snap our lock in there. Then make sure the whole assembly works. A lot of people ask if I read manuals on how to do all this stuff. Stuff like this is just taking it apart. No, I just figure it out. It would take me longer to read the manual and try to find out how to do this than it does just to go ahead and do it. So that's what I did. When it comes to repair procedures, alright, I think we got it. That have to do with safety, yeah, I actually read the manuals. But this is just assembly. Even if I screw it up, nobody's in danger. I just had to buy some extra parts. Bolt our camera in there. Click. Okay, looks like We're good to go. And we'll put our wiring harness and handle back in our tailgate. Probably could have put the wiring harness in afterwards, but it was there. It doesn't disconnect from the camera either. Bolt our handle in, and we'll clip our rods in. Make sure they're working. We'll feed our wiring harness down through the tailgate. And we can put our lock actuator in. One bolt is slotted, that's why I didn't take it all the way out. So just slide that one back in, torque it down, tighten up the other one with our impact that identifies as a torque wrench, plug it in, and we're ready to put our tailgate on. A lot of people say that rebuilt cars aren't the same as the factory, and to that I say good, because do you see a mirror finish like that on a factory tailgate? No, you do not. So slide our tailgate into the slots on the bottom. And we'll bolt on our straps, and we can plug it in. I did tape the end of it out of the way, so it didn't get snagged on anything. We'll feed it through the bottom of the bed. Make sure our tailgate's working. And we'll go underneath, pull the wires through, and plug them in. Route them through the rest of the spaghetti under here. This is much easier without a spare tire. I'm glad I didn't get one. At least for right now I am. Now we can unbolt our old wheels. I'm sorry if you like these. I don't. They don't belong in this truck. So we're getting rid of them. But first, time to install our carpeting. Start a couple of the screws, and then we'll run the rest of them in there. Hope there's enough battery life in my impact to get this done. There's a lot of it. Then we'll put our wheel opening molding on. Line up the little plastic clips, snap them in with the installation tool. Couple screws in the bottom, one in the back, one in the front, and because this doesn't have mud flaps, GM decided that it needs a bolt in the bottom of the fender, which also holds this molding. Don't ask me why a mud flap makes a difference between an extra bolt in the fender, but GM thinks it does. Pull our right rear tire off, and while we have them off, we'll check the brakes. A little surface rust on the rotor. We'll get rid of that in a trip down the road. Pads look good. We'll throw our new wheels on. These are the wheels the truck came with. I did go by the RPO code. So we're going to pull these off. I did sell the other ones, so I did get my money back. The correct wheels had better tires, so I saved some money not having to buy a set of tires. Pull the front tire off. We're going to leave this off. We have some suspension work to do because, well, it's a GM HD truck. Our idler arm and pitman arm are both worn out, probably because they had the big tires on there, and probably mostly because it's just a GM HD truck. So we'll unbolt them both. We got a pickle fork on the end of the air hammer, and we'll separate them. We don't have to worry about messing up the boots because we're tossing out the parts anyway. Now we can unbolt the sway bar and drop it down. We'll leave the links on. We're just going to unbolt the bushings from the frame. Let it hang. Give ourselves a little more room in there. Now we can unbolt the idler arm. It's a nut and a bolt, so we have to have a wrench on the other side. There's a washer in there, so it likes to stick to the frame and wait until you're standing underneath it and then fall on you. It's always good to grab that before it can play its little game. Now I can pry the idler arm out. And it headed for the pile. It knew its rightful place. We can unbolt our steering box. 3 bolts that go through the frame. We'll just leave them in there. That way we can move the steering box out of the way. We can get a socket on it. Pull the pitman arm off the bottom. The steering shaft, all the lines, and the module are still all plugged in. There's enough room to move it around so we can work on it. And because I forgot my pitman arm puller at work, we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. Take a die grinder and cut a slot in it. You don't have to go all the way through. If they really cranked on it when they tightened it up, a lot of times it'll actually crack while you're cutting it. If it doesn't, you go get your favorite tool and give it a little love tap and it'll slide off of there. And toss it in the pile. And we got our new pitman arm. Make sure you put it on in the same direction. There's some bigger slots in there, so it'll actually only go on in 4 directions. Even though there's a bunch of splines, 4 of them are bigger. So we'll put our nut on there, our lock washer, tighten it down. Put our gearbox back up against the frame and then bolt it in. Hard part's done. Now we put our idler arm in the other side. Wiggle it around so our bolts line up. Push them through. Put our washer and our nuts on the other side. And we'll tighten them down. It's easier to tighten the top one first. Otherwise the wrench kind of gets stuck on the bottom one. So once everything's tightened up, we can put our center link up. Put the nuts on there. And we'll tighten it down. The pitman arm side was spinning, so you just kind of make a face at it and let it know you're serious, and it'll tighten up. Of course, it also helps if you push the center link up and kind of wedge it in there on the pitman arm. Now we put our sway bar up. Start the bolts. When we got them all started, we'll tighten them all down. Now we'll grease everything, because this might be the only time it ever gets done. At Jiffy Lube, you're lucky if they put oil back in. There's no chance of them actually greasing a vehicle. There's a fitting on each ball joint, tie rod end. The pitman arm has one, and the idler arm has a couple. We'll throw this wheel back on for now. We have to take it back off when we get some more parts. Put our tire on the other side. And we'll put this pretend skid plate up there. The one that's made out of high strength plastic. Bolt it up. Pull some of this tag off. The rest of it will come off eventually in the water. Now we need to change our fuel filter because a little warning light on the dash is yelling at me. So we'll pull the drain plug out of the bottom and it's not going to do anything. Must be a lot of sediment in there. So we'll just take the whole thing off of there and make a mess. And here's the mess. There is a drain pan under there, so calm down, EPA. Change out the O-ring on the center. Snap our filter in. Change the O-ring on the cap too. Spin it up there. and tighten it down. I like this style, it's much easier than the old style. You just have to wonder how long that plastic housing is going to last. I imagine it's going to get brittle at some point. We'll tighten our drain plug back in the bottom. We did wash it all out, so there was quite a bit of sediment in the bottom. Now it's time to set our TPMS sensors. The new tires came with them. They were complete, never broken down. So we'll put it in learn mode, and we'll trigger each sensor. Start with the left front, then go clockwise around the truck. If you forget the order, the lights on the truck actually light up. You can see the tail lights on here. When it's programmed, it'll go to the other side. It'll be on the left rear now. And we're all done. It's relearned. All our tire pressures are reading correctly. Now we just need to set them. Having numbers that aren't all the same really bother me. At least the two fronts in this are the same and the two rears are the same, because we can't have all four be the same. Now we can put our cover back inside our tailgate. Start out the screws, run them all down in there. And we'll put our plastic cap back on our tailgate. We'll pull the little end of the two-sided tape out, and then we'll snap it in. We'll just pull that little tab from the two-sided tape that we had and stick it on there. If you expose the two-sided tape before you clip it all in, sometimes it doesn't get all the way on there. So I like to snap it all the way on, then just pull the tape out from underneath it, push it right down. It's a little more difficult, but it makes sure you get it right on the first try. Push it on there. Make sure it's going to stay. Throw our plastic on the ground. And now we're going to continue our two-sided tape party. So we're going to put the body side molding on the driver's door. Factory alignment system's already in place. We'll pull the backing off the two-sided tape, line it up, and stick it on. Hopefully straighter than GM got it. The truck is outside because it was a nice sunny day. It was nice and warm. Makes putting these moldings on a lot easier. Being that it was a black truck, shouldn't have any problem with these sticking. Pull off our alignment system. Look at that, I got promoted. Picking up the garbage. Now we'll pull our nameplate alignment system off of our sunroof and stick it on our door. Now we can toss it out. Hopefully we won't be needing it again. Look, more two-sided tape. Put our little gaskets in for the hood. Passenger side's a little different. It's got a plastic backing to it, so it clips in under the headlight and then sticks down to the fender. Push it all on there. The driver's side, just a rubber strip. We had this off because, well, it fell off. And this side sticks to the side of the fender instead of the bottom. So hopefully it'll stay longer than it did from the factory. So now we're back inside. Need to pull our tire back off. We need to change this drive axle. Because the tow truck driver must have thought that the drive axle was a good place to put the J-hook. So he tore the boot up. Could replace the boot, but I don't know what else he destroyed, so we're just going to change the whole axle. That way we don't have any problems. So we'll pull the cap off, pull the drive axle nut out, and now we can get to all of our bolts on the inside of the axle. Just keep rotating the axle so we can get to all the bolts and buzz them all out one by one. It's a lot easier on the lift than it was on the floor. Last one. Now I pull the axle off of there. And we pull the axle out. It will fit, just got to kind of go around the sway bar link. I would have done this before, but I didn't know it was bad until I checked it out and had it up on the lift, and I couldn't get one from the parts store right away. So rather than leaving it up there, I got some other work done and I just put it back up there. So now we have our new drive axle. Slide it in the hub. We'll slide it up on the inside. Since this one's round and not notched, it's a little more difficult, but it'll still fit. We'll line up the holes for the bolts, and we'll run our bolts in there by hand. Hey, look who's ambidextrous. Once we have them all started, you can torque them down. Click. Times 8. Put our little cap back on there. Use a screwdriver on the outside edge, because if you just hammer on the center, you end up with dents on it. Of course, it'll match the other side then, but oh well. There's our drive axle. Not a tow hook, despite what the tow truck driver thought. Now we can put our other skid plate on there. This one's actually made out of metal. I guess they ran out of high strength plastic. We'll start the 2 bolts in the back, and we'll tighten up the front. And we'll tighten up the back. And we'll put our 1 bolt back in the front skid plate. Bet you thought I was going to forget it. If you remember, the skid plates were in the back, in the bed. Somebody had taken them off. Well, I didn't get all the bolts, so I had to run and get one from Scott's GM Truck Emporium. So somewhere along the line in this Dukes of Hazzard style adventure off-roading, we lost the tailpipe. Just the tip. Well, I bought a replacement because these are pretty expensive and I'm not going to pay all that money. Even aftermarkets are quite pricey. So we're just going to put a new tip on there. The problem is, when this thing goes through regen, it gets extremely hot. So there's actually an air gap in here to keep the tip cool. So we're going to have to recreate that. So we're going to put this on, leave a little air gap in there, and we'll put our tip on here. I got a black one, black truck, might look a little better. Let's get that on there. This total cost for all this was less than 40 bucks. So a replacement, much more than that. Let's get started. First we need to cut off the remains of our little tabs here. They're all bent. If they'd all broken at the same place, I could have just welded right to them. But some were broke off flush with the front, some were bent and still halfway there, and some broke off flush in the back. So we're just going to cut them all off with the front. We're going to put our pipe up there. We're going to mark where all those tabs go. If this doesn't work out, there's a couple welds there on the tailpipe. You grind those off and that whole sleeve will come out of there. So if I ever wanted to change this, I could buy the factory one and just weld it on. We'll see what it looks like. Then I'll decide. So we'll cut our little tabs. There's 5 of them, I believe. And there they are. So we're going to weld them in. That looks about right. Clamp them up. Tack them in. Spin our pipe around. Tack in the next one. And then we're just going to keep working our way around until they're all on there. And once we have them all tacked up, we'll weld them up there permanently. We'll weld the inside. And we'll weld around the outside. Make sure it's not going anywhere. And we'll put our pipe up there. And get our pipe installation tool. Tap it into place. We have our little air gap in there. We're going to tack it up. See how everything fits. If we like where it's at, we'll weld it up there permanently.
I'm the painting gnome now.
We don't want it to rust, and since we're putting a black tip on it, we're just going to paint the exposed part black. Everything from the axle back is now black. It's high temperature paint. It's actually made for headers. It might survive. We'll find out. Tighten our tip on. Just has one set screw in the top. Give it a good shake.
Click.
And the required, that's not going anywhere. To be sure, it's secure. Now it's time to put that spare on that we didn't get when we bought the truck, courtesy of our sponsor, Scott's GM Truck Emporium. Always the best parts, but the owner's a sarcastic jerk. Pull our little lock out of there. Go find the jack tools. We'll assemble the barrel. There's a tab on the inside. I'm going to use the lug wrench. Turns it into a handle. Crank it down. A lot of people have no idea how to get the spare tire down on these, or any GM truck, or Ford truck, or Dodge truck for that matter. They're pretty much all similar. So we'll just crank the thing down. Slide our tire under. Drop the little holder down through the center of the wheel. And crank it up. Click. Now we'll go put these jack tools back in the truck. Or like a lot of people do, we'll just leave them on the side of the road. Snap our lock in there. Make sure it works. And close the little door. So the previous owner was a little rough on the interior. We're missing our little doors here for our outlet and our USBs, and the little cap for the shifter button. So, change these first. Hopefully I can just pop this piece out. Don't have to take the whole console out. I figured I'd try prying them out. The tabs didn't look very stout, and if it broke, didn't matter. I'm throwing it away anyway. If you wanted to save them, you gotta kind of push the tabs from the back. Plug our new ones in from Scott's GM Truck Emporium. I know, I could clean it before I put it in, but well, then the clean freaks would win. Leave that out for a second. Well, it's out. Not what I had in mind, but oh well. all our plugs are in there, all our doors are changed, so we'll snap them back in now. Got an upgrade. 3 USBs now instead of 2. Much better. We got our new lever from GM. I just really need this cap, but I paid for the whole lever. I'm going to use the whole lever. So we'll pull the top shroud off of our steering column. Make sure you make that face. Tilt that steering column down. Pull the little boot off of there. A lot of faces required for this one. Try pulling the cowl off the bottom. Tilt it back up. We have to pull the tilt lever off. It just snaps out. And now we can pull that cowling off of there. The wiring for the shift handle, for those 2 buttons, runs down underneath. Pull that out. We can pull the set screw out of our shifter handle. And it just slides out of there. And then we got to pull the knee bolster down, because that wiring harness goes where I can't see it. Let it wiggle and pull. We'll just let it hang. Didn't feel like taking the hood cable off. So we'll get the rest of that wire out of there. All that money, it doesn't come with a boot. Come on, GM. Stick the boot on our new shifter, since GM couldn't be bothered with that process. Set it in there. Then we'll run our wires down underneath. Plug them in. Since our bolster's off, it's easy to get the shroud on the bottom of the steering column. So we'll put that in. We'll put the top one in, clip them together. Somewhere along the line I did bolt that shifter in. Now we can get the boot in there. Just kind of squeeze it and it'll slide into the little slots. Work your way around. Make sure our button works, and it does. Goes into tow haul mode. We'll have to check the shifting button later. I assume if one works, the other one will work. So we'll put our knee bolster back up there, snap it in, 2 screws in the bottom. And now we have a low coolant light. So we're gonna figure out what's wrong with it. More than likely the system is just low. It's got a little tank on the bottom that has some ridiculous fill procedure because engineers hate mechanics. But we'll check the system just in case. The sensor's right here. So we have our sensor bypass tester. Just plug our paper clip in. Sensor bypass tester. That'll complete the circuit. If our light's off, we know our whole system's good. It's either the sensor or it's low on fluid. Okay, our light's out. So We're going with either a low system or a bad sensor. So we're gonna do our really stupid fill procedure. You basically have to fill it up all the way to the top, block off the drain, and it'll fill the lower reserve. There's a little tube in the back. You can see the coolant going down in it. There's a cap on the side. You have to loosen it up, and it'll bleed the air out of there. Except it's like a pinhole that it has to go through, so this process takes quite a while. And we're going to get it all done and find out that sensor's no good anyway. So we have to order a whole bottle because you can't buy just the sensor. While we're waiting for that, we're going to go put our new floor mats in. Or actually floor liners. So we'll pull our little tray out of the back. It just has 2 bolts that hold it in. They're actually the seat bolts. Ooh, piece of candy. Hey, detailer guy. So the detailing gnome cleaned it up. Now we'll put our liner in there. We just took them out of the box, so they really don't have the proper shape just yet. It's a nice hot day, so they'll start to lay flat. We'll set them in there. Drop our tray back in. And tighten it all down. Put our seats down. Put the one in the front. Now, this is not a sponsored video, but I do have to admit, after they sat in the sun for a day, they did flatten out. They fit better than the WeatherTechs at half the price. I got them off eBay. Front's got a couple little snaps that snap in. Make sure it doesn't get wedged under the pedals. We'll snap those in. And our bottle's here, so we're going to change it. Pull our brace out for the fender. I didn't want to take that plastic piece that I had 2-sided taped on earlier off, so I just kind of pulled it out of the way. Now we can unbolt our battery cable. And just to add some excitement to my boring videos, we're going to do this live. So the other battery is still plugged in. So like a game operation, we can't let the positive battery terminal touch anything. Or we're going to have a light show. And possibly some melted modules. Pull the battery out of the way. We're going to clamp off our hoses, hopefully to limit some of the mess. Probably be unsuccessful in that attempt, but whatever. Can't say I didn't try. We'll unbolt the bottle and slide it out. Pull our hoses off. And we'll set our new bottle in there. Slide it into the tab and slide it back. Run our bolt down there. And start putting our hoses back on. Drop our battery in. Literally. Put our hold down on there. Tighten it in. And we put our little junction box back on. Tighten all our battery cables up. We managed to make it through this whole process without melting anything. Put our brace back underneath. Tighten it up. Yeah, that's right. You don't need the extension for that. We'll cap off the little vent and start our ridiculous fill procedure. We did loosen up the cap on the side of the bottle. We're just going to keep filling it. You have to fill up the big tank, and then it starts to fill the lower tank through that little pinhole. And 3 hours later, it's done, and our light's off. Now, we're going to cavity wax our rockers because it's a GM and they won't last if we don't. So we're actually going to use the gun for this, get a good coating in there. Now, because these rockers are multi-pieced inside, pull the little plugs out, we'll get the bottom. Then there's plugs on the inside, we'll get on the other side of the inner panels. Make sure that it's totally coated in there. Then we'll go up around the wheel arches in the back. Another spot that these things like to rust. And it's ready for the land of corruption rust. We're going to change our trans fluid. So we'll pull the drain plug out of the back, let it drain. We have our transmission oil filter wrench. Tighten up the oil plug. Click. We'll get the 1-inch impact to finish it off. Pull our oil filter out of there. We cleaned off our magnet, stick our magnet back up there, and put our trans filter up. Click. Clean up our mess. Clean freaks don't freak out. And we'll go fill it up with our unsponsored transmission fluid brand. Not a fan. That's all the parts store had at the time. Now we're going to pull our passenger door apart, because we need to know if there's a speaker in it. Place your bets. Are we going to find one? Pull all our screws out. A couple on the bottom here. There's a hidden one behind our little plastic wood. And I forgot about it. Got a little ahead of myself, started pulling the door panel off. Disconnect our handle. And disconnect the wiring harness. Set our door panel off to the side. Did you guess no speaker? You were right. There was no speaker. So we took a quick trip to Scott's GM Truck Emporium. We got a pigtail and a speaker. We heat shrunk the wires on there. And while they cool off, we're going to cavity wax the door. You know this was the real reason I took it apart. Spray that bottom seam. And we can start putting it all back together. Stick the water barrier back up there. Put our grab handle bracket on there. And now we can put our speaker on. Clip it in the door and bolt it in. Probably should have cleaned it, but then you wouldn't know what channel you're on. Pull our window sweep out. We'll pop all the clips out for the top of the door panel. We'll pop all our clips on the door. Put our window sweep on. Plug in our door panel. Connect our handle. Put the lock through the door panel and push our door panel on. We used a bumper installation tool. Couldn't find the door panel installation tool. Put our bolts in our grab handle. One behind the door handle. Put the little cap on. Put our hidden one in there. Our little plastic wood. Comes from plastic trees. Couple bolts in the bottom of the door panel. And we're done. So it was a pretty quick job. It only took actually 4 days. Of course, the little finishing touches did take a lot longer because I got it done, I got it inspected, and this became the pizza girl's new favorite vehicle. So I let her drive it. She put about 2,000 miles on it. She never wanted to drive in my other trucks. I don't know why she liked this one. Truth be told, I actually like this one better than my white one. Till it comes time to wash it. I wash my white one once a month. I wash this one once a week. Well, I don't. The detailing gnome does. So I guess I should ask him if he likes it. I've had no trouble with it. It is nice having two trucks. Since my white one is always attached to the trailer, I have one that I can run around with, if I get to borrow it. But since I'm poor, I don't need two really expensive trucks just for convenience. So we're going to sell this one. We got all of our dirt cleaned off of our engine. No lights are on. It's a happy truck. Our interior is nice and clean. Of course, according to the auction, it was detailed before we got it. It was pretty clean in there. And we don't have any trash in the bed. So I'm pretty sure the build is done, and the pizza girl let me borrow my truck. So let's play everyone's favorite game, What's in My Console? We'll find out if it really is done. She left her Hater's Tears water bottle. She doesn't even have a YouTube channel. Maybe it's all those pizzas she didn't deliver. Better hang on to this. I have a feeling she's going to need it. What else? Cool Whip. Chalk. What else is in here? A tire. Really? Some business cards. Let's see. Chiropractic care. Joint replacement. Physical therapy. Ambulance service. See, folks, this is why you don't let a CrossFitter borrow your car. You end up with all this stuff in your console. That's it. That's all that's in here. So I guess this build is done. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. And if you were interested in buying this truck, it will be up on my website eventually. Right now, the pizza girl really is driving it. So, as soon as she's done with it, it'll be up there. So thanks for watching.